Hello everyone, this is my week's reflection. The book starts off with teachers seek pupils, must have an earnest desire to save the world. That sounds sort of fake, doesn't it? That's exactly what the narrator thinks too. He actually laughs it off at first because honestly, who wouldn't? It sounds like a scam or at best someone completely out of touch with reality. But then he answers the ad anyway. And what he finds is not what he expected at all. I'm breaking down chapters 1 through 3 of Ishmael, and why these opening chapters aren't really about saving the world yet. They are about realizing we might not understand it in the first place. Right away, we learn something important about the narrator. He used to want to save the world. But now, he doesn't believe in that anymore. He's cynical. He thinks people who talk about changing the world are naive or just lying. So when he sees this ad, his first reaction is basically, this is ridiculous. And that matters because it shows us something deeper. He's already operating inside a certain worldview, one where big change feels impossible and hope kind of feels pointless. But here's the thing. He doesn't see that as a worldview, he sees it as a reality. And the idea that what we think is just reality might actually be something else is where everything starts to shift. So he goes to meet this so-called teacher. He walks into the room and then there's a gorilla just sitting there behind glass. At this point, he thinks it's a joke, like maybe it's some kind of performance or setup. But then the gorilla starts communicating with him telepathically. And now the narrator is completely thrown off because suddenly everything he assumed about intelligence, communication, and even what a teacher looks like doesn't apply anymore. And then this is where the book starts doing something really interesting, because the fact that Ishmael is a gorilla, that's not just for shock value, it's actually the whole point. Ishmael isn't human, which means he exists outside of human culture. He's not raised with the same beliefs, the same assumptions, or the same way of thinking about the world. So he can look at humans from the outside in a way humans can't do for themselves. And that's powerful, because it means he can see patterns and problems that feel invisible to us. It's kind of like if you've lived your whole life inside of something, you stop noticing it. But someone outside of it, they see everything. And that leads into one of the most important ideas introduced in these chapters. Ishmael tells his story. He was captured as a baby, taken from the wild, and raised in captivity. Studied, observed, kept behind glass, so yes, he is physically trapped, but here's the twist. The narrator is trapped too, just not in a way you can see. He's trapped in a system of thinking, a worldview, that he didn't choose, didn't question, and doesn't even realize he's inside. So while Ishmael is in an invisible cage, the human is in an invisible one. And that idea leads directly into the core concept of these chapters. Instead of giving lectures or telling the narrator what to think, Ishmael starts asking questions, and through those questions he introduces this idea that humans are living according to a story, a cultural story that explains who we are, how the world works, and why we live the way we do. But here's the key. We don't think of it as a story, we think of it as a truth, as just the way things are, and that's what makes it so powerful. Because if you don't realize you're inside a story, you can't question it. And this is where the book starts to connect to ethics, but not in the way you might expect. At this point, the narrator probably expected to learn something like what actions will save the world. But Ishmael goes deeper than that. He's not starting with actions, he's starting with perception. With understanding how we even see the world in the first place. Because the idea is, before you can decide what's right or wrong, you have to understand the framework you are using to make that decision. And by this point, something subtle but important has changed. At the beginning, the narrator assumes he's in control. He's the human. He's the intelligent one. He's the one evaluating whether this teacher is legit. But now, that's completely flipped. Ishmael is guiding the conversation, asking the questions, leading the direction, and the narrator becomes the one being studied, the one being challenged, and the one being taught. So by the end of chapter 1 through 3, we don't have solutions yet. We don't even really have answers. What we have is something more important, awareness. The idea that maybe the way we see the world isn't neutral, it's shaped. And the question becomes, if you've lived inside a story your whole life, how would you even know it's a story? Because maybe the first step to changing the world is realizing we might not understand it at all. Thank you.